It goes to the core of our humanity. There is nothing more central to our humanity than being male or female. And when you deconstruct that, and when you seep out the meaning of the word woman so that it no longer means anything, because anyone could be a woman, you are going to the core of what it means to be human. And their goal is to revolutionize the meaning of what it means to be human, Humanity 2.0. The title of your show is Info Wars. Now, there are info wars going on all over the place, but what parents don't know is that there's an info war going on in the medical world. Your pediatrician is not getting the information that she or he needs to have in order to help your child. Your pediatrician has been led to believe by the American Academy of Pediatrics, the whole thing, the whole 9 yards, the whole belief system. You can be born in a wrong body. It's normal to want to have these body parts removed. We have to put the child in the driver's seat, no matter how old they are and how mentally disturbed. The parents need to take a back seat. The pediatrician needs to take a back seat. We have no robust literature whatsoever, no evidence that this is helping our kids in the long term, and therefore we have to stop. We have to make these interventions unavailable, aside from perhaps a very small group of kids that will be in a clinical trial. So that is correct. And even more importantly, perhaps, is that about 2 weeks ago, a letter was published in the Wall Street Journal, signed by 21 different experts in this field from 9 different countries. And essentially they said, what are you doctors in the US doing with your kids? What the heck are you doing? There's no evidence for this.
What if I told you 20 years ago they would be cutting the genitals off of little boys and little girls, that they would be cutting the forearms and the fronts of their legs off for girls and creating painful artificial penises that create nothing but pain, and huge wounds in little boys where their genitals once existed. And then when they commit suicide, blaming it on the public for not going along with it. If I told you that, you'd say that's something out of a science fiction horror movie. That's not real, but it is real. And there's a larger agenda at foot here. And we're going to be talking to the author of Lost in Transnation, a child psychiatrist guide out of the madness, Miriam Grossman, MD, medical doctor, forwarded by Dr. Jordan B. Peterson. Incredible book. I just got done reading it. Skyhorse Publishing, great people. You need to get it. You need to share it with everybody you know and put it in the library as well, because if we'll put up with this, we'll put up with anything from these mad scientists. To talk about what's really behind it more, our guest is going to join us, but I want to play part of her testimony in Congress. Here is part of her testimony. We'll have more of the testimony throughout the interview. Here it is.
The chair now recognizes Dr. Grossman for 5 minutes for your opening statement.
Thank you, Chairman Guthrie. Chairman Guthrie and members of the subcommittee, thank you for the opportunity to address you. My name is Miriam Grossman. I am a board-certified child, adolescent, and adult psychiatrist, author, and senior fellow at Do No Harm. I have been taking care of patients for 45 years. I'm going to use my time to respond to Dr. McNamara. First, I'm struck by her use of the phrase, sex assigned at birth. Sex is not assigned at birth. Sex is established at conception, and it's recognized at birth, if not earlier. Dr. McNamara claims that her views are science-based, but to claim that sex is assigned at birth is without any scientific basis whatsoever. Its language misleads people, especially children, into thinking that male and female are arbitrary designations and can change. That is simply not true. Dr. McNamara claims that social and medical interventions are the only evidence-based treatment and that scientific evidence shows it is life-saving. Without it, she's warning us, kids will commit suicide. Well, a growing number of countries have effectively banned the care to which she's referring. And thank God there's been no wave of suicides or other mental health catastrophes. 3 years ago, Finland placed strict limitations on medical interventions for minors. Sweden did the same thing after a 14-year-old girl was found to have osteoporosis and spinal fractures from puberty blockers. An investigation concluded, quote, the risks of anti-puberty and hormone treatment for those under 18 currently outweigh the possible benefits. The UK conducted a review and called the evidence very low. They've also placed severe restrictions on the care that Dr. McNamara calls life-saving. Norway also analyzed the data and has made similar changes in policy. The National Academy of Medicine in France warned, quote, great medical caution must be taken in children and adolescents, given the vulnerability of this population and the many undesirable, even serious complications the therapies cause. Doctors in New Zealand and Australia have published similar statements. Is Dr. McNamara suggesting that all these countries are rejecting evidence-based treatment and placing their kids at risk of suicide? Regarding that point of view, Finland's gender expert, Dr. Rita Kaltiela, said, quote, it's purposeful disinformation, the spreading of which is irresponsible. All 7 countries, and Florida too, of course, concluded that kids don't need their development interrupted, the girls don't need their periods stopped and their voices lowered, and the boys don't need to grow breasts. What they need is psychotherapy. I have other objections to Dr. McNamara's testimony. She insists that her position, only hers, represents standard medical care. What she doesn't want you to know is that there is no standard. There's a debate. There's a fierce debate. And on the side opposite her stand such prominent figures as Stephen Levine, Kenneth Zucker, Paul McHugh, and James Cantor, among others. These doctors are giants in the field. They have been treating transgender patients and gathering data and publishing papers about them, and I mean no disrespect here, but since before Dr. McNamara was born. The point is that those veteran clinicians and others who have wisdom and experience are ignored because they disagree with the current narrative. They're against medical interventions for the same reason those 7 countries are. There is no evidence of long-term benefit, but there is evidence of harm. I'll end by quoting Jamie Reed, the courageous whistleblower from the Children's Gender Clinic in St. Louis. I believe that that hospital receives the medical education funding that we're discussing today. She said that doctors at that clinic said, we are building the plane while we are flying it. We are building the plane while we are flying it. That's how they described the treatment at their gender clinic. Our precious tax dollars should not support such a perilous experiment. Thank you.
All right, for the balance of the hour, the author of Lost in Transnation, A Child Psychiatrist's Guide Out of the Madness, Miriam Grossman, medical doctor, joins us. And we are very honored to have her and congratulate her on how well the book's doing. It can save a lot of lives and turn this cult back. We're going to play a clip of another lady pointing out later that this is like Japanese soldiers that didn't know World War II was over 5 years later and were still fighting on islands. The parents that have done this aren't going to admit that they were wrong, many of them. They're going to dig in deeper. And then when the Frankensteins they've created go out and start shooting up and killing people, they're going to defend it. We've already seen that happen. Many, again, go out and commit suicide. And since she testified to Congress, the UK is moving to block the surgeries and the chemicals. It's just incredible to see this unfolding. It doesn't seem real. You have to pinch yourself and believe you're in some alternate universe created by the devil. but this is very real. So, Doctor, thank you for joining us. I think it's just best with this audience of millions that everybody be reminded that if everybody listening tells somebody to tune in now, shares the link from Infowars.com/show or band.video to the live show feed under my name there. Go to that page, that many millions more will listen. If they tell them to share it, many millions more. And it's that chain reaction that will bring down this tyranny. I think they've run really far with the whole trans agenda pushed by Hollywood and Big Pharma. We'll talk about why. But now they're running into very stiff opposition, and I believe the tide is starting to turn. Just look at the Dylan Mulvaney situation. But thank you so much, Dr. Grossman. I'm going to try to give you the floor until we go to break in about 15 minutes. So you've got the floor.
Well, thank you so much, Alex, for inviting me on. I appreciate it. Like you said, I'm a child and adolescent psychiatrist. And for the past few years, I have been treating exclusively children and adolescents and other young people who have distress about their sex, about being male or female, as well as their parents. So I'm in the trenches. I'm in the trenches, and what I'm seeing is I'm seeing atrocities. I'm sorry, I've been talking so much that I'm losing my voice. I'm seeing atrocities. I'm seeing indoctrination of children, vulnerable children. I'm seeing parents and children become alienated and estranged because of this belief system, and that's what it is. It is a belief system. The idea that a person can be born in the wrong body, the idea that the way a person feels takes precedence over their physical reality of who they are. So this is what children are being taught. It's not something new. I explain in the book. Well, that's a good picture. That's a picture of a girl's arm who had skin and other tissues removed in order to create what they are telling her would be a penis. It is not a penis. It is a structure created by surgeons. Some of those surgeons do not have the well-being of their patients in mind. I would venture to say that what they have in mind is their bank accounts. Now, there you have videos of how this horrific procedure is done. The removal of healthy breasts of young girls as young as age 12. This is happening in our country, and these are atrocities. Now, the medical field, my profession, sad to say, there is a history of medical scandals that have taken place and brought terrible harm to families and to individuals. For example, not long ago, we were doing lobotomies on mentally ill people. And we, in fact, I was reading yesterday, Rosemary Kennedy, JFK's sister, who had mental health issues, underwent a lobotomy. Yes, there are the little girls, what you're seeing now, the young girls. It's hard to look at. These are little girls. They might be 11, 12, or 14 years old. They have had their healthy breasts removed. Now, these girls have a mental illness. They should be treated for the mental illness. They should not be climbing on the operating tables, which is what's happening. And I am warning parents, and I want them to understand that we're in the midst of another medical scandal, such as the lobotomy scandal, in which we took these poor mentally ill individuals and actually drilled holes in their brains or entered their brains with an ice pick-like device through their eye sockets. And we did these horrific things to them, cutting their brains, severing one portion of the brain from another. Again, this was done to Rosemary Kennedy. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because certainly the Kennedy family had the very best medical care. They would not have chosen to do something so drastic to their child if they had not been told at the time, this is the only thing available to help your daughter. There's a medical consensus. I want you to remember that phrase, a medical consensus. And so they went ahead and they signed on the dotted line. And at the age of 23, she had this barbaric procedure done. And by the way, the inventor of this procedure got a Nobel Prize for it. So what I'm trying to underscore here is that we have a history, unfortunately, in my field of doctors coming up with what they claim to be solutions for psychiatric conditions. And Dr. Levine calls them medical care, essential medical care. No, this is not what we as doctors are supposed to be doing. We took an oath to do no harm. That oath seems to have been forgotten by many of my colleagues. It gives me no pleasure in saying this. So I wrote the book, A Lost in Trans Nation, not only for parents who are currently going through this disaster in their home, the disaster of their son or daughter coming forward and saying, I'm not your son, I'm your daughter. Please call me by this new name, new pronouns, and take me to the gender clinic. I'm writing this book also so that parents who are years away from that possibility ever happening are given the tools to prevent it. And I believe that parents can inoculate their families. I believe they can be inoculated against what is a social movement, a social political movement, a turbocharged movement. It's a system of beliefs. It's a belief system like a religion. It is not based in any medical facts or science. The idea that a person can be born in the wrong body is an irrational belief. We are teaching these irrational beliefs to children, and children, when they're taught things by authorities, and they hear about it at school and on social media and through Disney and from our president, they believe it. And so I see patients every day who genuinely believe that it's possible to be born in the wrong body, and that the only solution for that is to change their bodies and get a new body. Now, this is a dire situation, and I am so pleased that I'm on your show so that I can reach as many parents as possible. So there's a lot that parents can do. And my book is not written for professionals. It is written for regular moms and dads. It's easy reading, easy in the sense of it's not written in a professional way. It's not easy reading in the sense that it's not upsetting. It's terribly upsetting. But there's a lot you can do about it. And you can prepare your child. You can reach your child before the ideologues do. That's what you must do. And I give you all sorts of information and tools and ways that you can reach your child and conversations that you need to have with your child, with your pediatrician, and anyone else who's trying to foist this belief system on your family. So again, I wrote this as a doctor. I'm a medical doctor. I'm also a person of faith, but I did not write this as a person of faith. I wrote it as a medical doctor. For example, I provide appendices written by expert lawyers that are expert in the field of parental rights. Parents have a constitutional right, and the Supreme Court has been very clear on this. Parents have a constitutional right to direct the upbringing and education and medical care of their kids. Now, schools and others are trying to subvert those rights. And for example, I have a chapter in the book about schools, providing examples from my practice of families that went through the ordeal of finding out, not from their child and not from the school, but from some other parent in the school that they ran into in the market that says, oh, did you know your daughter is using the boys' bathroom at school? And the parent looks into it and discovers, lo and behold, that for the past 3 months, their daughter has been given permission by the school to use the boys' bathroom, to use the boys' changing room, to be called by a different name and different pronouns. And this has been going on. This is called social affirmation, so-called Orwellian term, because when you affirm these kids in their new identity, of course, you have to deny their biology.
All right, Doctor, we're going to go to break here in a few minutes. We'll have you continue on, but let's just recap what you just said, and we'll talk more about it. This is a religion. It's a scientific cult. It's basically psychological warfare, creating a new religion. And they, all over the country and all over the world, where the same programs launch, whether it's Australia, Germany, the UK, the US, Canada, it's all the same program. They have files, and they tell the child, you may be another sex, you may be something else. Their pediatrician may ask when mom or dad's out of the room. That's come out. And then they put them in a file and say, oh, we can't let the parents know. They create an intelligence file on the parents, and they begin taking your child away from you and creating a new identity. This is classic cult programming. I'm not a psychiatrist or medical doctor like you, but I've studied history. I mean, is this not mind control we're talking about?
This is very, very scary stuff. This is the state stepping in, taking control, influencing your child in a direction that you do not agree with, and then emotionally manipulating your child to believe that if you don't go along with this belief system, and if you refuse to call your son by a female name and female pronouns and get him placed on blockers to stop his development,
you are abusive,
you are
and when they get depressed because they're doing this, it's your fault they're depressed.
That's right. That's exactly what's going on. And I tell those stories, and I give parents the information they need so that they can avoid this catastrophe.
So just like we have to tell our children about gangs, or tell our children about child molesters or kidnappers, or tell our children about drugs, we've got to tell them that the system is now become predatory in many areas, funded by Big Pharma, funded by the Pritzkers and others, and that they're literally preying on children. So we'll talk more about this, but when we come back, Lost in Transnation, I know we want to send it to #1. It's already doing very well on Amazon. It's a great place to get it. Where else can people get Lost in Transnation?
Oh, well, let me just say something here. You have to be really careful because there are bogus books up there trying to trick parents into buying the wrong book. Please get the right book. And the way to do that is to either go on my Twitter. There's a link on my Twitter at the top, Miriam_Grossman, or get it on the link that's on my website, MiriamGrossmanMD.com. Do not buy the wrong book.
And we're going to talk about that when we come back. I've experienced this. This is intelligence agency run, folks. So it's very sophisticated. And this is the jewel in their crown. Because if they can get away with this, they can get away with anything. 2 men can have a baby, putting men in women's prisons. I mean, they are murdering logic and common sense and biology and science. We'll be right back with our special guest. For everything the globalists hit us with, God, through Mother Nature, has given us the answer. I don't have to sell you on CBD oil, full spectrum CBD oil, the incredible things it does for your nerves, your brain, your entire physiological system, for your nervous system particularly. Everybody knows it's incredible, it works. We have the strongest, best CBD oil you're going to find anywhere at the lowest price. Yes, you can find this same CBD oil for 30% more because that's who we're getting it from, made right here in Central Texas. Our private label name is Rebel Zen. Rebel Zen is a private label of one of the top 3 or 4 CBD makers in the country that's based right here in Texas, and we're giving it to you at 30% off. And here's what's even crazier. 30% off of what they're selling it for. They're selling theirs for 30% off what their competitors are. So this is the highest rated, already at the lowest price, now even a lower price. Rebels in. Get yours at InfoWarsStore.com now. If you go back to modern medicine developed in the last 300 years, it's done incredible things, what you call Western medicine, but a lot of psychotics and really mad scientists, that's where you get that archetype in Hollywood and culture and literature, get into it because they're Joseph Mengele types. They're mad scientists. And Dr. Grossman really made a key point that there were millions of people in the Western world that were lobotomized, and of course, against their will. And it was a terrible practice. And then there was a particular doctor that drove around the country in a truck and would do public garroting of people's brains with an ice pick on public stages. Just absolutely dehumanizing. And we later knew that was wrong and said it was wrong. Tuskegee experiment with the syphilis. The list really goes on and on. And a lot of these doctors are around so much blood and guts that they also just become very, very numb to it. So they're working right next to psychotics and sociopaths, and they go along with it because there's all this authority of the white lab coat. But what they're doing to boys, what they're doing to girls is unspeakable. It's the takeover of society and civilization. We talked about Rachel Levine, the admiral, and all the rest of it, saying, we can't let children go through the wrong puberty, and we've got to get access to little kids. And this is the state taking your children. You've got Washington, other states passing or trying to pass laws to take children and then not say where they are, not even tell parents the state has them. I mean, this is human trafficking, and this is being done scientifically. The Tavistock Institute, the CIA, MI6, major funding of this. I've been on there 29 years really exposing this because I was aware of it. I had a very close family member that became one of the deputy heads of PETA, and they learned that it was really a Peter Singer transhumanist movement. And then information we got to regularly publishing finally pretty much brought down PETA. That's just one of the things we've done. It sounds amazing, but it's on record. So we have a real transhumanist agenda understanding. And they say, if we can say there's no XY chromosomes, if we can sell this anti-science movement as science, we can get away with anything. So viewer discretion is advised. For TV viewers, radio listeners, you'll be spared this, but this is being done to children as young as 7 years old, some cases younger. They're gearing up with all these big medical centers bragging they're going to make all this money. You've seen those videos, to do it on an industrial scale. So viewer discretion is advised. We have some TV stations carry us and cable. They complain. I understand you complain. We're putting viewer discretion up here, but this is being done to children. So I don't want to look at it. You don't want to look at it. But here's, from 20 years ago, 35 millimeter footage of a man's penis being cut inside out and an artificial vagina being made that becomes a bleeding, stinking, diseased mass. That's why, 40% of them end up committing suicide. Then when the system basically murders these people, they turn around and say it's our fault for not embracing them and going along with the cult. Now we have transgenders trying to commit suicide in Canada, where they'll kill you if you say you're depressed. But no, you can't be depressed. They won't kill you when you ask to die in Canada, because this is such a gift that you have received. So this is a cult. They know what they're doing, and they're moving against us on all fronts. So I've laid out a lot there, Doctor, author of Lost in Transnation, a child psychiatrist's guide out of the madness. But something you said is fascinating, and we'll skip the next network break. This is too important, so you have another 25 minutes uninterrupted. This is too important. You talk about something that is a big issue of when you're exposing a key globalist operation, they will create fakes to divert people and distract. And when it comes to the trans agenda, I was told by a senior YouTube official, 10 years ago or 9 years ago, in front of my producers on the phone, they said, you can cover anything you want and we'll leave you alone, but stop exposing the trans situation. So this is very special to them, and perhaps she can speak to that. But People need to know the tactics they're using, because I'm interested in this, because I've seen it myself, but not with your book, with other books. What are they doing to try to off-ramp people from getting the book?
Well, lots of things. First of all, on Amazon, there's been something like 10 or 12 bogus books that have been put up there trying to trick people into buying the wrong book. For a while, for about a week, there was a paperback edition of. There is no paperback. They had actually sold quite a few copies. So, yeah, there's that. Then there's the fact that Barnes and Noble's, the largest book retailer in the world, is making it very difficult to find my book, to order my book online. If you go into a store, they're told people are told that it's out of stock. But when I checked with Tony Lyons, my publisher, he told me that Barnes and Noble actually never bought any. So they're using all these ways of trying to avoid the truth from reaching the people that need it most, who is the parents. Now, I just want to underscore, Alex.
Doctor, I want you to underscore, but I want to hit this point. Here's and then you'll have the floor. Why is it the jewel in the crown? They protect it like nothing else, and people slavishly work to keep this going. Why is it so central to this transhumanist movement?
Because it goes to the core of our humanity. There is nothing more central to our humanity than being male or female. And when you deconstruct that, and when you seep out the meaning of the word woman so that it no longer means anything, because anyone could be a woman, you are going to the core of what it means to be human. And their goal is to revolutionize the meaning of what it means to be human. Humanity 2.0.
That's right. They are stealing our identities, taking our identities away to then give us a false identity, the transhumanist cult. And Yuval Noah Harari admits that. He says the trans movement is the tip of the spear. He said it is the icebreaker for the entire transhumanist movement. Doctor, I interrupted you. Make your point. You've got the floor.
Yeah, thank you. You mentioned Admiral Levine, and I wanted your listeners to be aware of something. Admiral Levine, a number of years ago, I think in 2017, was interviewed and said very openly, and I quote Admiral Levine in my book, "I do not use preferred pronouns. My speech is not going to be compelled. So I call the Admiral Dr. Rachel Levine. I call the Admiral." The Admiral said in this interview that, and I know this is cumbersome, but that the Admiral is pleased about having transitioned to living as a woman later in life after having children. And the Admiral says, "I can't imagine life without my children." So now let's look at that closely, everyone. This is the same Admiral Dr. Rachel Levine that is standing up over and over again and telling the parents in this country that the only response, the only treatment, the medical treatment that they should pursue for their child who's confused about being a boy and a girl is the medical pathway. Blockers, cross-sex hormones. Now, those blockers and cross-sex hormones, what do? They sterilize these kids. So here we have, on the one hand, Dr. Levine saying, "I'm so pleased that I have my children. I can't imagine life without my children." And yet, Dr. Levine is playing a major part in producing a generation of sterilized, asexual young people. And I'm going to take this opportunity right now. I challenge Admiral Levine to a debate on this issue. Right now, I'm waiting to do it. I've been waiting years. Let's stand up and let's talk about the medical care that you are saying is the only way for these kids. What these kids need is psychotherapy, and they need to go off the internet. That's what they need. They do not need their puberty to be stopped.
They need to
Puberty
climb a
is not
tree.
disease.
They need to go to summer camp. They need to get a job. Exactly.
When hope and love has been lost, and you fall to the ground, you must find a way. When the darkness descends, and you're told it's the end, you must find a way. When God decides to look the other way, and a clown takes the throne, we must find a way. You will find a way. Dig down and find faith. When you're close to the edge, with a gun to your head, you must find a way. We have entered the fray, and we will not obey. We must find a way and find faith. We won't let them divide. We will never abide. We will find a way. Infowars.com.
So what's going on here is an atrocity. It's a medical scandal. And I wrote the book to help parents avoid it. And they can avoid it. They can reach their kids first. And they can tell their little kids, you were a boy or a girl from the moment you were created. From the very moment that you existed on this earth, you are either a boy or a girl, and that's wonderful, and that is never going to change. Now, there's all kinds of boys and all kinds of girls, and not every boy is a football player, and not every boy wants to be a builder or an engineer or what have you, and not every girl is into makeup and fashion. That's ridiculous. There are all kinds of boys, all kinds of men, all kinds of girls and women.
And let me just briefly
And if
interject
you're
on
not
that.
exactly-
We have confused, unhappy children in an unhealthy culture, obsessed with entertainment, video games, divorced from reality. And then they're told, oh, you're unhappy, this is the answer. But the statistics show this is the highest level of suicide, the highest level of crime, the highest level of mental illness. They are diverting, and I've had members of parliament on from the UK decades ago, that they noticed around half the children being targeted were autistic or Down syndrome. They have TV shows about this now. So they target the mentally ill or the mentally handicapped for this. And as you said, Admiral Levine, he had his children, but this literally sterilizes these boys and girls. And so really they're making sterilization fashionable.
Well, we are creating very, very sad. It's so, so sad, Alex. And I see patients, I have seen patients who have had their genitals removed, their reproductive system removed. They are sterile. They cannot respond sexually. They don't have breasts. And they are in mourning for the rest of their lives. And it's those people whose suicides concern me. I'm concerned about suicide in those individuals, the detransitioners, and in the parents of these kids. Those are the suicides I am genuinely concerned about.
You're a very smart lady. You've written a definitive book on this to warn people in a roadmap to protect our children and our future and to break with this cult. I've studied it, and it's the most powerful corporations and intelligence agencies behind it. Can you give us your view on who's behind it, what the long-term agenda is?
Well, as I said, as a psychiatrist, I am focused on the families and the kids. And providing parents with the information that they need in order to prevent this happening. But in terms of the larger picture, well, yeah, the transhumanism movement, which is led by a number of extremely wealthy individuals, some of them are transgender themselves, and they obviously wish to promote this, and it's a philosophy of disembodiment. So it's encouraging children to feel separate from their bodies because their bodies are wrong. And that's a mental illness when you are so disembodied that you actually wish to have a different body. You want to climb onto the operating table and have healthy body parts removed. So I'm not an expert in terms of the macro from 30,000 miles kind of thing. I would recommend, I'm going to mention the name Jennifer Bilek. You should have her on, Alex. Bilek, boy, B like boy, I-L-E-K. And she has studied this for years. She has analyzed the money trail and the transhumanist philosophy. Again, my book really doesn't go there. My book is practical. How to talk to your kid, how to talk to the teacher at school who might be promoting this, your pediatrician, how to get control of your child's internet use. I cannot underscore how important that is. You can't just let your kid have a smartphone and be out there 24/7. You might as well just take your kid, drive to the worst, most horrible part of town that you can find, and just let your kid out of the car and say, enjoy, see you tomorrow. That's what the internet is. And the internet is filled with groomers, adults who want to reach your child and groom your child. Now remember, grooming means the psychological and emotional manipulation of a vulnerable person in order to exploit that individual at a later time. Now, there's sexual exploitation, there's financial exploitation. This is ideological exploitation.
And let's talk about that, because the high schools and colleges now at Career Day bring in the, quote, trans person to dance in front of the small children. In many cases, parents aren't told. And I've talked to people who've also read the articles. They admit that a large portion, approaching a majority, of trans people end up being sex workers, and they're told, you're not just going to do this to yourself, you're now going to be a sex worker. So you talk about the exploitation. This has all been blueprinted out, because no matter what country you're in, it's the exact same attack profile.
Well, I would mention, Alex, that you see the sex workers, the statistics that we have about transgender identifying individuals being killed, a good number of those numbers of murdered, tragically murdered individuals are men who are living as women, and they go into they become sex workers, and they do not reveal that they are actually men, and they end up being murdered by the men that pick them up when those men discover that they just had sex with another man. That's an important thing for people to recognize. It seems to be, I'm no expert here, but it seems to be, for the men that are living as women, a very big accomplishment to be able to attract heterosexual men and have sex with them.
Well, that's a big thing pushed by the media, that you're a racist or a homophobe or whatever, a transphobe, if you don't have sex with these people.
Yeah, well, the point that I want to make at this moment is that, the title of your show is Info Wars. Now, there are info wars going on all over the place, but what parents don't know is that there's an info war going on in the medical world. Your pediatrician is not getting the information that she or he needs to have in order to help your child. Your pediatrician has been led to believe by the American Academy of Pediatrics, the whole thing, the whole 9 yards, the whole belief system. You can be born in a wrong body. It's normal to want to have these body parts removed. We have to put the child in the driver's seat, no matter how old they are and how mentally disturbed. The parents need to take a back seat. The pediatrician needs to take a back seat.
So all the evidence, all the research has to be thrown aside. So let me ask you this. Let's talk about some of the good news, or correct me if I'm wrong. They got everybody to first accept Bruce Jenner saying that he was a woman. And we're like, okay, sure, he's an adult. He can do whatever he wants. I mean, I don't hate people just because they're mentally ill or whatever they're doing. Then they go, okay, well, now your children feel like this, you've got to affirm them. But we know statistically highest rates of suicide, highest rates of drugs, highest rates of crime. They're super depressed, they're unhappy, obviously, and now they're in this cult being abused. But I see the UK moving to block it, or has blocked it. A bunch of European countries have done it. You testified to Congress on that. Now a bunch of other dominoes have fallen. So it seems like people really get this is fundamental. Can you tell me, if this was a football game, where you think we are, what quarter, who's winning, and then what we can do to fully push back? I know there's lawsuits getting filed, lawsuits getting won. I know a bunch of other countries have backed off going, whoa, this really is Hellraiser, you know, Joseph Mengele 2.0. So as negative as this is, it seems like humanity's starting to wake up despite all the corporate push by Admiral Levine and the rest of it. But then how do you expect them to counterstrike?
Okay, far as correct. Sweden, Finland, Norway, England have done a 180, and they were very big on so-called gender-affirming care, where you put the child in the driver's seat and you just accept you rubber stamp their new identity. And all those countries have done exhaustive analyses of the literature and of the research, and they have all unanimously said that we have no robust literature whatsoever, no evidence that this is helping our kids in the long term, and therefore we have to stop. We have to make these interventions unavailable, aside from perhaps a very small group of kids that will be in a clinical trial. So that is correct. And even more importantly, perhaps, is that about 2 weeks ago, a letter was published in the Wall Street Journal, signed by 21 different experts in this field from 9 different countries. And essentially they said, what are you doctors in the US doing with your kids? What the heck are you doing? There's no evidence for this. So this is all fantastic. I'm very glad to report on that. Now, in terms of your football analogy, you'll have to excuse me. I don't know, I'm not into football, but I know baseball. So if we could switch to a baseball analogy.
Please.
So I would say that in this country, well, I'm going to say that maybe we're in the 5th or 6th inning. I think that there might be additional innings. I think it's going to be a long haul. It is starting. The lawsuits are starting. But the pushback is massive. And the money and power that's behind this is absolutely massive. So it's a war, and it's a war against evil. And I think that it's important. I'm a doctor. I don't usually call things evil when I write or when I speak. But now I am going to do that. This is evil. It is evil to plant these ideas, these false ideas in the minds of little kids, the idea that they may be in the wrong body. It is evil to lead them on a path that may end up with these dangerous experimental medical treatments, which may end up with disfigurement, lifelong disfigurement, and sterility. Now, we haven't mentioned, Alex, that these kids become lifelong dependent on pharmaceuticals. So you could look at my book as a way of helping parents to prevent their child's lifelong dependence on drugs, because that's what it is. They become dependent on pharmaceuticals. A lifelong patient worth about $1 million each child. Is
incredible. And we've seen the different university medical center heads brag how much money they're going to make off this. It is an open conspiracy against humanity. It's the mad scientists trying to set this benchmark of anti-science insanity so they can have their way with everybody. The best way to make sure they don't get one of the fake books is to go to MiriamGrossmanMD.com. One word, MiriamGrossmanMD.com. MiriamGrossmanMD.com. Get the book, share it. Doctor, please come back on Owen Schroyer's show, The War Room, whenever you want. It's 3 p.m. weekdays. Please come on Harrison Smith's American Journal, 8 a.m. And if you're ever in Austin, we would love to have you in studio. Please join us again soon. You're amazing. If you want, I'll send you, they're like $20, an external mic, because your information's 100%. Your audio is a little off. You had an external mic, obviously, or it's not hooked up. We really look forward to speaking to you again. And I just want to thank you for what you're doing, for not just myself and my family, but for obviously everybody's children and our human future together. So we salute you.
Well, thank you so much. I apologize about the audio. I'm a little tech disabled over here, trying my best. I hope people could still hear my message.
Oh, no, it was amazing. It was amazing. I'm just saying, a $20 microphone and you're going to be next level because your video is great. So just get an external mic and come on next week if you can. We love you. We appreciate you. And great job, Tony Lyons, publishing your book. We'll talk to you very, very soon.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm looking for partners, collaborators, colleagues who want to join forces with me around the globe and create real value, generational wealth, and financial freedom for everyone else around the world. Get involved in the cryptocurrency markets, get involved in the NFT markets. This is your moment. Life all comes down to a few moments. Don't let this pass. Now it's not too late. Next year's going to be too late. Ultimately, this is about freedom. That's the way I see it. This is about giving power back to the people and enabling billions of people worldwide to use the financial markets to improve their lives and those of their friends and their families and their communities. Honestly, I think it's a violation of human rights not to allow people basic access to financial services. Because right now people are being kept in the dark, they're being robbed of education, and it's a travesty. And so I'm looking for people that want to join me and be a part of this solution. And that all happens inside the DeFi Academy. The gains my students are making are absolutely amazing. Double, triple digit gains in the first month alone. That's amazing. This will change your life. Now is the time to get involved. I'm going to tell you exactly how my students in my academy made money in the last 30 days. I'm talking about real trading results. And let me just whet your appetite a little bit. Let me hit you with some numbers. I'm talking Brendan from New Zealand is up 68.77% on the month. Steve from Europe up 83%. Albert in Singapore up 169.9% on one single trade. I got Susan up 153% on her call options alone, also rocking 139% returns and 442% returns as well on individual trades. These are people that are changing their financial future in the last 30 days, but it's based on trading discipline.
I've graduated over 500 students from inside my academy from over 54 countries around the world. It's amazing. When it comes to crypto, DeFi, and blockchain, we love this space. We truly believe it's the future. This is down to our core. It's authentic to what we're doing, and everybody can tell through the camera because you can't make this stuff up.
If you're watching me now, wherever you are, I implore you, take 60 seconds right now and join my academy. Apply today. Now you've got a chance. Life all comes down to a few moments. What are you going to do? What's the choice that you're going to make?